compare it with the development of our mental categories to interpret the world than our ways of thinking. And this process has been considerably accelerated during the last 100 years through the rise of party bureaucracies. It can be shown that no other human ability has suffered to such an extent by the progress of the modern age. The relentless process of more and more, bigger and bigger, all of which were supposed to serve the political needs of modern mass societies in order to make representative government possible where direct democracy would not do. We do not know where these developments will lead us, but we can see how cracks in the power structure of all but the small countries are opening and widening. That every decrease of power is an open invitation to violence. I assure you, for your own well-being, it's very unpleasant to live under a dictatorship or a tyranny or a one-party dictatorship, but it is paradise compared to living under a totalitarian dictatorship.
Okay, before I begin, I would like to briefly explain who we are and why we are here today. I speak on behalf of the Hannah Arendt Institute based in Mechelen, Belgium. We form a bridge between academia and practice and are committed to strengthening democratic resilience and renewing democratic life. We translate academic insights into accessible knowledge and concrete tools for policymakers, professionals, and citizens based on three pillars: citizenship, urbanity, and diversity. Our work ranges from mapping polarization in neighborhoods and training local officials to tackling polarization, disinformation, and hate speech, publishing policy papers and setting up initiatives together with numerous professional partners in Flanders and Brussels. This spring, we established the European Hannah Arendt Network on Democratic Resilience and Renewal, which brings together researchers and practitioners with the same mission. From this dual perspective of rigorous research and practical engagement, I would like to delve deeper into the story that has inspired us. I would like to begin with an image that has followed me ever since I first saw it. A rally in Hamburg in 1936, thousands of arms raised, or maybe hundreds on this photo, arms raised in perfect mechanical unison, and in their midst, one man. August Landmesser, standing motionless, arms folded across his chest. His wife, Irma Eckler, was Jewish. The Nuremberg laws, passed only a year earlier, had rendered their marriage criminal. Landmesser's gesture was not simply dissent, it was eyesight. He saw, with terrible clarity, what those around him refused to acknowledge. Above that photo, on the opening slide of my presentation, is the logo of the Hannah Arendt Institute, Belgium. 5 stylized closed eyes and 1 open eye. The open eye is more than a design choice, it is an ethic. It reminds us that democratic life depends on the stubborn willingness of at least some people to keep looking when others prefer comfort over vision. Hannah Arendt warned that the ideal subject of totalitarianism is not the fanatical believer, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction and the distinction between true and false no longer exists. Landmesser's solitary stance embodies the courage to maintain those distinctions. Today, I want to use that image, one open eye in a sea of closed eyelids, to discuss 6 signs of democratic decline that Hannah Arendt helps us identify: truth decay and the organized lies, polarization and mobilization of alienated masses, the erosion of democratic institutions, attacks on plurality, the betrayal of the elite, and finally, the structural dangers of apathy. These themes come together on this slide. Sorry. Almost like a warning lights on a dashboard of democracy. My intention is to pause long enough at each signal so that, like Landmesser, we not only see it, but also feel its appeal. And then ask ourselves what an institution like ours, which was born at the intersection of science and practice, can do to counteract that appeal. The decline of truth comes first, because according to Arendt, it poisons the source from which all political judgment must be drawn. Organized lies are not clumsy untruths that can be refuted with a fact check. They are a deliberate blurring of boundaries so that the facts themselves lose their authority. Propaganda in the Goebbels era depended on radio and newspapers. Today, the vectors are algorithmic feeds that are so personalized that we encounter a million private realities, all of which are reflected back to us as self-affirmations. A publication by the Rand Corporation analyzes and visualizes this shift as episodes of truth decay that correspond to moments of technological change and geopolitical unrest. But Arendt had already diagnosed the core of the mechanism. When everything can be true, nothing feels true anymore. And in that vacuum, brute force becomes the only arbiter left. Democracy cannot legislate itself out of this void. It must refill the public domain with shared realities and a shared language, which is precisely why our institute links academic research to public engagement and citizenship. We're engaged in repairing the infrastructure for conversation, because without understanding, everything comes to an end. When organized lies make shared reality disappear, polarization rearranges fragments into opposing camps. On the spectrum from democratic activism, which even embraces civil disobedience, to extremism, which sees violence as a legitimate means of change, we see how quickly democratic struggle can degenerate into violence when the emotional temperature in society rises, when the situation becomes toxic, when people choose revolution over democratic evolution. Arendt, who wrote about the crowd cheering outside the Volksgerichtshof, understood that the crowd is not only angry, but also lonely. Mass movements recruit people who feel isolated and invisible and promise them meaning through belonging. That loneliness survives every technological innovation. That is why online conspiracy forums so often function as support groups. We therefore do not combat toxic polarization by preaching politeness from a distance, but by creating arenas where people can disagree without being humiliated, where polyphony, agonistic pluralism, if you prefer the academic term, remains a source of richness rather than resentment. Our own Hannah Arendt Roundtable series attempts to do just that, turn heat into light. And I want to show a very beautiful piece of art, I think. This is the table at our television studio at the Hannah Arendt Institute. The table represents democracy, and as you clearly can see, that one leg of the table is being eaten, luckily in a glass case, by woodworms. And it is, of course, the democracy that is continuously under attack. And we hope, of course, to use the metaphor of the table of Hannah Arendt to invite every voice present in our society. Thirdly, we are confronted with the erosion of democratic institutions. In times of stress, citizens become impatient with the slowness of the law and the subtleties of procedures. Demagogues offer a quick solution in the form of personal rule. Institutions seem boring, until they disappear and we discover that their tediousness was in fact the thick fabric that protected us from arbitrariness. Arendt warns that institutions are important not only for what they deliver, but also for the habits they teach us, the discipline of evidence, argumentation, of balanced compromise, etc. Our citizenship education and our partnerships with local authorities are aimed at reintroducing that muscle memory at every level. When citizens learn how complex and wicked problems are tackled, they become more immune to future claims that only one strong leader can solve it. A fourth democratic challenge is the attack on plurality. Autocratic or even totalitarian movements detest the chaotic plurality of human viewpoints. They strive for ideological homogeneity, for conformity, which can only lead to social entropy. This results in a process of depluralization. Values and identities are gradually rewritten until alternative interpretations no longer exist. Modern crisis narratives, conspiracy, impurity, apocalyptic, compress complexity into a single binary opposition, good versus evil. Each of us feels this reduction when an algorithm leads us to a single explanatory framework. The antidote is not only diversity in the demographic sense, but also plurality in the sense of political life. The constant encounter with otherness that keeps interpretation open. That is why our academic and social consortium spans different universities, disciplines, civil society organizations, governments, and much more. Plurality is embedded in our institutional structure. Fifthly, there is the betrayal of the elite. Julien Benda warned in his 1927 publication La Trahison des Clercs that when intellectuals, the scientists, writers, and experts charged with safeguarding universal values, exchange the selfless pursuit of truth for partisan passion, they rob society of its moral compass. Arendt expanded on this insight in Dark Times. Such intellectual betrayal oils the machine of authoritarianism. Lawyers draft discriminatory decrees. Economists deliver ideological figures. Commentators whitewash cruelty as sometimes a manifest destiny. References and structure give violence the appearance of reasonableness. The forms evolve from pamphlets to live streams, from pulpits to podcasts, but the patterns remain. Our task is therefore twofold: to train professionals who put integrity above progress, and to expose the subtle transactions in every field that allow ambition to erode principles. At the Hannah Arendt Institute, we seek to re-anchor critical research in responsibility, emphasis that knowledge without courage is not influence, but complicity. Finally, we come to the structural dangers of apathy. The German expression used by Rolf Sachse is Erziehung zum Wegsehen, an education to look away. Apathy is not silence, it is an active cooperation with whatever power happens to be in control. It is the operating system of authoritarianism because a regime does not need to convince apathetic people. It only needs to keep them at their place. In our time, apathy often disguises itself as irony, the attitude that regards every outrage as déjà vu and therefore not worth responding to. The remedy, if there is one, lies in demonstrating that decisive action is possible. When our institute sets up projects together with practitioners, we achieve small victories over the overwhelming scale of global crisis. Every tangible local success breaks through the narrative that nothing can be done. Although these 6 signals paint a bleak picture, they also refer back to the simplicity of a single photograph. August Landmesser did not defeat Nazism by crossing his arms. He was imprisoned and ultimately murdered for his refusal. But the image of his refusal has been preserved and reaches us today as a moral inspiration. Georg Christoph Lichtenberg once wrote, "Many and perhaps most people must first know that something exists before they can find it." By unconsciously capturing the moment of Landmesser's gaze, the photograph shows us that a different attitude is possible and therefore findable. Our institute's mission is to be a bridge between science and practice, between the complexity that emerges from research and the urgent issues we face in everyday life. We keep that bridge open in the face of forces, economic, technological, ideological, that would rather see easy tunnels to certainty. We don't claim neutrality, but we do claim our involvement in situations where disagreement is still possible. Arendt said that power is realized where word and deeds are not separated, where words are not used to conceal intentions but to reveal realities, and where deeds are not used to destroy but to create new realities. Allow me therefore to conclude by linking words to deeds with three concrete invitations. Let's first check the health of our information ecosystems. Wherever you teach, publish, or manage data, ask yourself whether your processes prioritize evidence over narrative convenience. Second, create one forum, just one, where ideological opponents must share the same physical or digital space without the protection of echo chambers. Third, mentor someone who is on the verge of losing the courage to continue. Instilling hope is the most undervalued form of political work. If each of us takes on just one of these tasks, the balance between open and closed eyes, however small, will shift into the right direction. And that is all that democracy is, a living balance, reaffirmed time and again when ordinary citizens choose vision over passivity. Thank you for your attention, and let us keep our eyes and our institutions open. Thank you. And I now give the floor to Stefan Kailitz, a researcher at the Hannah Arendt Institute for Totalitarianism Studies in Dresden.
Yeah, it's hard to spell. Honored guests, colleagues, and friends, in recent years, we have witnessed the growing fragility of democratic institutions across Europe, across the Atlantic, and even within the European Union itself. Polarization deepens, trust erodes, and anti-democratic forces gain ground not only at the margins, but increasingly from within. These developments remind us that democracy is never a given. As Hannah Arendt said, it's an ongoing conversation. It is a living, contested project, one that requires vigilance, engagement, and a willingness to defend and renew its foundations. Moments like these demand more than analysis. They call for renewed commitment and for institutions capable of identifying the deeper patterns behind democratic decline, as well as the possibilities for democratic repair and renewal. It is in this spirit that I'm honored to speak today on behalf of the Hannah Arendt Institute for Totalitarianism Studies based in Dresden. Founded in 1993 in the aftermath of German unification, our institute brings together historians and political scientists. We investigate the roots, structures, and consequences of 20th century dictatorships and examine how democratic orders emerge, erode, and endure. Our mission is to bridge historical depth with empirical rigor and to contribute to a better understanding of the conditions under which democracy falters or survives. Our work rests on two equal pillars: historical research on repressive institutions and lived realities of the past, and political science research on present-day threats and resilience of democracy. Our historians conduct rigorous source-based research on the ideological foundations, institutional mechanisms, and instruments of repressions under National Socialism and State Socialism, with a particular emphasis on the German Democratic Republic. We study systems of surveillance, political justice, propaganda, institutional violence, and the mechanisms of rule and legitimation. But we also look beyond the institutions. Our research explores the everyday experience of dictatorship, how people adapted, conformed, or resisted when they did not close the eye. We also investigate how social hierarchies and generational experience shaped life under repressive regimes and how these legacies continue to influence post-dictatorial societies today. In recent years, our focus has expanded to examine especially the profound political and societal transformation processes since 1989. We investigate the dismantling of authoritarian structures, the restructuring of everyday life in post-dictatorial societies, the negotiation of new societal roles and identities, and the contested role of memory in shaping new democratic values. The question of how societies remember, forget their authoritarian past is central to understanding the prospects for democratic renewal, especially in a post-dictatorial environment. In the field of political science, our institute contributes to the comparative study of regime types and trajectories. Our flagship WaperEC dataset, short for varieties of political regimes, provides annual, historically grounded regime classifications for all countries from 1900 to the present. This allows to analyze democratic breakdowns, the emergence of hybrid and autocratic regimes, and how the different types of regimes consolidate or disconsolidate. And this in a globally way, it also includes colonial regimes, which makes it a bit different from other approaches in this field, because we argue that colonial is, of course, some kind of repressive regime, which was not addressed by other data sets like WIDEM, varieties of democracies. When we look at the development with this data set, we see that there's no reason for panic, but to take a real close look at the development. There was for time stagnation in the development of the democracy, but in recent years there's a decline of democracies around the world. And a stark example from this year's coding will be that we have to recategorize the United States from liberal to a defective democracy, which might not be a big step, but of course, the US is a core case in the world, and if this domino falls, there smaller dominoes will follow. It will be a complete new world. The reason for this reclassification is that President Trump, one of the reasons, there's several reasons for this reclassification, but that the attackers on the Capitol were pardoned by Trump, and this which effectively undermined the separation of powers, even though it was completely legal by the standards of the U.S. This is a fundamental issue. I come to another major focus of our work of our institute. This is the study of political extremism and the rise of radical right parties, which we already heard a lot about in the morning. And because we are based in Germany, most notably one of the core cases which we address in our analysis, the Alternative für Deutschland, and especially so in Eastern Germany, where it became the strongest party, and that's already since 2017. So that's already quite a while. But now nowadays the AfD has already a structural dominance in Thuringia and Saxony. They have twice the size of the CDU in the last federal elections. So the gap is so massive. That's hard to imagine that they will not win the next elections on the state level, and we have to see what that means to Saxony, Thuringia, to Eastern Germany in general. As I said, we analyzed the strongholds of the FDFD, but also the processes of nominalization, what it means when such a party is the dominant party and not only a party at the margins, which was in the past the NPD. It was massively anti-democratic, but it was not. But it was more or less completely isolated and did not gain much ground. But the FD alters the political discourse, and that is completely different from the past. We also try what was addressed in earlier talks today, the complex social and economic grievances that underpin the electoral success of the AfD. We really think it's important to address these grievances to come to democratic rebirth, maybe. Let me also highlight another interdisciplinary project that reflects the evolving challenges we face. Together with the Technical University of Dresden, our institute leads the right-wing extremism versus climate policy project, short Rex Klima, under the direction of Manis Weiskircher. This initiative, funded by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, examines how radical right actors reframe climate policy debates to advance nationalist and anti-democratic agendas. The team investigates how far-right narratives portray climate policy as a threat to national sovereignty, social order, and/or cultural identity, and how these narratives resonate with broader fears of societal loss and disruption. The project not only analyzes political discourse, but also seeks to inform public debate and policy responses at the intersections of democracy and ecological transformation. Beyond academic research, our institute is deeply engaged in democratic practice. Our scholars regularly advise democratic institutions, contribute to civic education, and participate in public discussions about the democratic decline, extremism, and institutional reform. For example, I had the honor of serving as an expert witness before the German Federal Constitutional Court in two landmark cases involving the far-right NPD party, one concerning the party ban, the other its exclusion from public funding. We also coordinate at our institute IFRIS, which is short for the Saxon Research Network, on integration, xenophobia, and right-wing extremism, which brings together scholars and practitioners to study the roots of democratic vulnerability and resilience in one of Germany's most politically polarized regions. I think it arguably is, if you observe, for instance, Pegida and so on, how it was massively polarized, especially in Dresden, but the whole of Saxony. Through these networks, we link academic analysis with civic engagement and political education, fostering dialogue between research, policy, and society. Our commitment to democratic resilience extends to applied research on democracy protection. Our former director, Thomas Lindbergh, together with Uwe Backes, led a project on militant democracy and civil society organizations fighting for democracy, tracing the historical development and legal framework of democracy protection in post-war Germany. And Uwe Backes continues to investigate conceptual and institutional challenges to democratic self-defense. These projects exemplify the intersection of historical insight and democratic practice, showing how lessons from the past can inform contemporary strategies for defending democracy. While much of our research is grounded in the German experience, the questions we confront, democratic backsliding, radicalization, memory politics, are relevant far beyond national borders. Our institute maintains close ties with scholars and institutions across the world, and especially Europe, and actively supports comparative projects on democracy and authoritarianism. We are committed to international exchange and to translating scholarly work into public understanding and civic education. In sum, our institute advances the understanding of democratic resilience by bridging history and political science. This is a specific profile of our institute. We're grounding research in regional experience, engaging with society, and fostering international collaboration. We look forward to contributing to the Hannah. We think it's a really great initiative, and we really want to thank Christoph again for starting this initiative. We look forward to learning from the perspective of the other Hannah institutes involved. I think that will bring us forward together as a unit. To conclude, I would like to return to Hannah Arendt. In The Human Condition, she wrote, "The miracle that saves the world, the realm of human affairs, from its normal natural ruin, is ultimately the fact of natality, in which the faculty of action is ontologically rooted." Arendt's concept of natality, the human capacity for new beginnings, is not just a philosophical abstraction. It is the foundation of freedom. It is what allows political action, responsibility, and a renewal of democracy in times of crisis. In that spirit, the founding of this network is more than a ceremonial gesture. It is an act of commitment to collaboration, to vigilance, and to the shared task of democratic renewal. We at our institute are really proud to be part of this joint endeavor, and we look forward to learning from and working with all of you in the years ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for your overview of the Hannah Arendt Institute in Dresden. And I now give the floor to Roger for the Hannah Arendt Center at Bard College.
So welcome. I also want to just acknowledge that it's really Christoph and the Hannah Arendt Institute in Mechelen that has been the initiative here, and we are all very thankful for him and the Institute. I've had the pleasure of visiting the gorgeous building in the Institute in Mechelen, which is a wonderful building, and maybe it doesn't reach up to this palatial standards, but it has energy, and it's a great place. The Hannah Arendt Center at Bard College in the United States in New York will celebrate its 20th anniversary next year in 2026. It started in 2006 on the 100th anniversary of Hannah Arendt's birth. She was born in 1906. It was started, as many great things in the world are, certainly by accident. I was not an Arendt scholar when I came to Bard, but she's buried at Bard along with her husband Heinrich Blücher, and she left her personal library to Bard. And so I was at Bard, and I had always read Hannah Arendt and liked her. And I thought I should, read some Hannah Arendt since we had our personal library there. And so I started doing that. I gave a talk at another school, and one of the professors said, "Do you think Bard would sell Hannah Arendt's personal library to us?" And I said, "No, why would they do that?" And they said, "Because we're a big, famous university and it belongs at us, not at Bard." And Bard's a great school, but we're a small school. And so I went back to Bard and went to the president and said, "Let's do something with the library." And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know, but it's her 100th birthday. Why don't we throw a conference?" And I hate conferences and I don't particularly like Hannah Arendt scholars. Sorry. Um, but I said, "Why don't I invite 20 non-Hannah Arendt scholars, people who I think are really smart, to come and talk about why Arendt matters today?" And that led to the conference and the book Thinking in Dark Times, which has done very well. And her literary executor, Jerry Cohn, came to the conference. Jerry just died in November. He was he had been her last research assistant at the New School and very close friend. And afterwards, he came up to me and said, "I've been to 100 Hannah Arendt conferences. This is the only one she would have loved. Would you take over the Hannah Arendt Center?" And I said, I'm not a Hannah Arendt scholar. And he said, "It doesn't matter. That's what we want." And the Hannah Arendt Center is not a scholarly institute. We have scholars there, right? But it's not. It's dedicated. Its mission is to create an institutional space for bold, risky, and provocative thinking in the spirit of Hannah Arendt about our political and ethical worlds. Um, we want to bring people together who take risks, who think creatively, provocatively, boldly, and originally. Our vision is to empower a plural people to at once rediscover their unique opinions and political agency and find common ground to build together a shared world through thinking, listening, and talking with one another. I just say that, Hannah Arendt is a brilliant writer, brilliant thinker. I read her regularly, teach her regularly. But what I most love about her is not what she writes, it's her basic approach to life. It's this fact that she has opinions, and her opinions sometimes aren't popular, right? She wrote a piece defending, not def- saying that we should not force integration of public schools in the United States. And many RN scholars ignore that piece or say she was a mistake. No, it was her opinion, and it was well thought out. She, in her book Eichmann in Jerusalem, right? She said some things that upset some people. And I love the fact that when she's in that interview that you saw an excerpt of, she said, "Look, this is what I think. This was my irony. This is who I am. And if people don't like it, I can't do anything about it." I love the fact that she understands that people will have different opinions and will disagree, and she thinks that's good. So the Arendt Center is really dedicated to promoting the spirit of her work as well as her work. We do it in a number of ways. It's a very public. We are at a college, Bard College, which is a wonderful liberal arts college, and we teach a lot of courses. We have lectures, we have reading series, but a lot of our work is public facing. So every October around her birthday, we held a conference. I don't even like calling it a conference because it's really more an intellectual inquiry and gathering. It's 2 days. Usually have about 300 people, 400 people there. And we invite about 20 people to come and speak about a common theme. So Olivia early mentioned that and then we publish a book about it. So we have a book coming out called Tribalism and Cosmopolitanism, which was based on the conference last year, how can we develop a pluralist politics that includes both tribalism and cosmopolitanism? Um, and so that book will come out, I think, in July from De Gruyter. But and and it's again, these conferences, we had journalists. So Sebastian Junger, who's a war correspondent and has written a book on tribalism, which I think is beautiful and wonderful. But we also have cosmopolitans. It's really an attempt. We bring business people, we bring lawyers, we bring activists. Um, it's really an attempt to bring a wide range of people from different perspectives, different life experiences together to pursue a question. This year, in October, the conference will be called Joy, Loving the World in Dark Times. Some of you know Arendt was very fond of the phrase amor mundi, the love of the world. At a time in which so much tragedy and catastrophe seems to be happening in the world, we wanted to ask the question, well, is joy something we all have a right to? Not happiness, but joy. And what is joy? And um, is poetry still important at a time of political crisis? Is music still important? Are dinner parties still important? And we're going to explore those questions over 2 days on October 16th and 17th at the conference. And you're all, of course, invited to join. We also have, for the last 12 years, every week, with few exceptions, like today, we're not meeting because I'm here, every Friday at 1 o'clock New York time. So about 6 or 7 o'clock here, depending on the time of the year. We meet, usually between 100 and 200 of us meet on Zoom, and we read Hannah Arendt together. We usually read between 10 and 25 pages. And we've been reading her books over and over again for 12 years. It's an incredible community. I know at least 5 or 6 people have come up to me here today and told me that they're members of the group and that they've enjoyed it and it's been meaningful to them. Someone just told me that they're a nurse and it's something that they think about all day while they're, at their job as a nurse. It's a wonderful experience to lead this community. And again, it's something I invite you all to. It's open to all members of the center. I know the time zones are hard, so we record all of them and we put them on YouTube, and they're all available on YouTube. And then we've also started a podcast called Reading Hannah Arendt with Roger Berkowitz. It's a very original title, I know. But the people said, well, it's what it is, be direct. And it's been very popular. I've been sort of surprised. But encourage you to, download your favorite podcasts app and listen to it if you want. In addition to that, we also have Hannah Arendt's personal library at Bard. We have a wonderful lecture series called The Courage to Be, about how to encourage and model ethical and political courage in a world that often doesn't do that. We have a dialogue project where, in connection with the virtual reading group, people who are members of the virtual reading group can split off and do into 3 to 4 person dialogue groups where they meet and talk about different aspects of the text we're reading. Or we also have new groups that start all the time of Hannah Arendt and feminism, Hannah Arendt in the Middle East, things like that. One of our most important projects, and this relates to some of exactly what we're doing here this today, is called the Democracy Innovation Hub. We're not generally, I like to say that we're not only nonpartisan, we're not political, in the sense that whereas most political think tanks do policy, we don't do policy, and most humanities center, don't do politics, we do politics. So we're a weird humanities center that does politics but no policy. But we do have this thing called the Democracy Innovation Hub, which actually emerged out of my engagement with David van Leybruch, who was here this morning. And I became convinced that not as a matter of policy, but as a matter of civic education, it was absolutely necessary for everyday citizens to once again learn how to be citizens, to disagree, to have meaningful conversations, and try and make policy. The American jury system, some of you know the American jury system, brings 12 people together to make a judgment about a case. Alexis de Tocqueville, the great French social thinker, said that the jury was the most important institution in American democracy. Not because the jury would generally make the right judgment, because it did justice in the right way. Because what it did is it took 12 everyday citizens and elevated them and said, don't judge according to your prejudices or your personal opinion, but try and make a just judgment. To me, citizen assemblies are important not because they make the right decisions, but because they train people to think about the public interest, whatever that may be, as opposed to their personal interest. And that's what any good small r Republican government needs to have, are virtuous citizens who care about the public and not just their personal interest. We have visiting scholars. We have obviously lecture series. We co-sponsor events all over the world like this one, like one coming up in Verona with the Hannah Arendt Center in Verona in June. But mostly what we try and do, we have, through our podcast, our reading group, I'm on a lot of other podcasts, is we try and remind people of the importance of Hannah Arendt's voice and her message and her belief that politics matters, that we need politics in the way I talked about earlier this morning about the return of politics, that politics is dangerous and it's scary, especially at a time when so many of us have really spent our lives free from politics. And so we try and bring back the joy of politics. A kind of Hannah Arendt in The Human Condition says that there is no politics without transcendence. It's an extraordinary line. In a world in which religion and other transcendental practices have retreated, and in a world in which politics has generally become non-transcendental and expert-driven, Arendt thinks that what politics is really about is transcending, stepping out of our personal selves into a public realm. And that can only happen in the experience of politics. And so that's why the Democracy Innovation Hub, which we run, is geared towards helping to train people and teach people about participatory democracy, citizen assemblies, participatory budgeting, things of that sort, which return us to the transcendent, joyful experience of politics. We have a ton of programs. We have a membership organization. We also have a weekly newsletter called Amor Mundi, which goes out every Sunday and includes a column by myself and other events and other podcasts that we like or are involved with. I encourage you to check it out. It's at the Hannah Arendt Center at Bard College. We'd love to have you as a member or even a subscriber, which is free. And I'm really thrilled that we're one of the founding members of the Hannah Arendt Network, which I am very excited to see grow over the next couple of years. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. I would like to give the floor to the colleagues from the Hannah Arendt Center for Political Studies, but there is an identity conflict with the presentation, so please do present yourself.
I'm not Olivia Guaraldo, I have to confess. I'm Giacomo Mormino. I'm a postdoc student from the University of Verona. It's such an honor to be here in this extraordinary venue, but also in front of you, speaking in front of you, people coming from different institutions, different academies. And my task is to present the Hannah Arendt Political Studies Center in Verona, and I will split my time with Dr. Tussell, Natasha Tussell, that is a member of Hannah Arendt Political Studies Center. Our Political Study Center is founded in 2016 and based in Verona under the aegis of Adriana Cavarero and Olivia Guaraldo, and intertwines classical themes of political philosophy with research on the most significant transformation in contemporary politics. To explain what we do in our city, I can summarize what we have accomplished over the past year in order to give you an idea of how theoretical discussion intersect with practical engagement aimed at transforming the present. First and foremost, we are committed to disseminating research disseminating research we have conducted on the state of democracy and on war. To this end, we supported the translation into Italian of Judith Butler's Frames of War, which addresses war and violence from an ontological perspective, as well as an important work by Marcy Shore on the Maidan Revolution, the Ukrainian Night, one of the most overlooked revolution, at least in Italy, that triggered the hatred and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We also collaborate with various local and national institutions, convinced that in a context of a global democratic decline, it is crucial to continue working with local democratic institutions to resist the tide of authoritarianism and to restore democracy according to the Arendtian definition of acting together in a public space and condition of proximity. For this reason, alongside the theoretical reflection on what an institution is and how it functions, which Dr. Tussell will discuss, which will be the focus of a major academic conference we are organizing this June in Verona, I would like to conclude by highlighting a project we have initiated with the municipality of Verona and the foundation Cari Verona, a significant Italian banking foundation with philanthropic aims owned by Unicredit. For the past 3 years, in collaboration with the municipality of Verona, we have annually organized a festival called Verona Europa, where we pose the question, what is the state of Europe? And more importantly, what forces can we draw upon to transform the European Union? With Fondazione Cari Verona, we have developed 2 projects focused on the city of Verona. The first is the Urban Agency, an initiative aimed at imagining a city-level institution that can stimulate citizen participation and act as a conduit for grassroots demands direct toward municipal institutions. To use the words of Jurko that we heard this morning, the urban agency can function as a school where political literacy is practiced, but also where this democratic exercise is carried out. Since, as we have said, democracy today is a constant practice, it's a gymnastic, a learning by doing. The second project concerned the potential development also within the urban agency of public space transformation project carried out not only by the municipality or major real estate groups, but directly by citizens themselves. We believe that in a moment of disorientation and uprooting caused in part by globalization, it is vital to use architecture and the do-it-yourself approach to engage people with the environment in which they live, giving them the genuine opportunity to transform it. Architecture and the fabrication of public space can literally allow us to root our existence in a place, build shared memory, and foster a sense of belonging to forms of citizenship that are stronger than those offered merely by municipal administration. I think that this could join what Roger Berkowitz said this morning, but also now about participatory democracy, renewal of politics, and the expanding of the sources of the power.
Thank you, Giacomo, and also on my side, thank you to the organizers of this event. I'm very pleased to be here also on the behalf of the Hannah Arendt Center for Political Studies in Verona. The center right now is the host institution for my current research project, which is funded by the European Union through a Marie Curie Fellowship. And my work there, but is a collective work together with the research team, focuses on an Arendtian reading of the grassroots experiences of women courts, women's tribunals also called, which are not official courts or tribunals, but rather collective action organized usually by groups of mostly women around the world who react or try to react to judicial sentences that they feel are particularly discriminatory or unequal on a gender based, and react to that trying to restage sometimes the trials or to rewrite the sentences in a way that they feel reflects more the idea of justice and equality. And this is just one of the many examples I think we could think through, or relevant examples of how forms of discontent with democratic institutions can actually point not only to their outright rejection, but also to a sort of reimagination and reenactment of those very institutions. This also testifies somehow that democratic institutions, even if they are defective, or maybe because they are defective and imperfect, still can exercise a sort of appeal or an eros, to use an expression that has been brought into discussion this morning, and that we think as research center can be a starting point for a renewed democratic practices. More generally, my project is part of a broader line of research that the center in Verona is currently developing under the guidance of Professor Olivia Guaraldo, who is the director. And this line of research focuses on rethinking democracy in the European space. So the topic is really close and closely resonates with the discussion we are having here today. We try to work through the Hannah Arendt legacy, of course. So on the one hand, we move around her critique of totalitarianism on one side, but also we try to take the legacy of a remarkable effort to rethink politics, not simply as a set of institutions, but as the potential for new beginnings, for collective and participatory actions, and for what she called public happiness that can emerge even in dark and uncertain times. And I have to say that public happiness is one of the key conceptual framework for our research center, both as a theoretical tool for our scientific and academic research, but also as a label that testify our commitment to democratic practice and to initiative that try to disseminate this sort of democratic ethos or eros for democracy beyond the academia through initiatives that involve citizens and also local institutions, as Giacomo already said in his presentation. So we try to organize also discussion and debates about this research line, rethinking democracy in European space, trying to disseminate the idea on the one hand of an European space as a real and imagined space for democracy, and also an idea of democracy that has to take into consideration always two sides, democracy as a political regime on the one hand, but also democracy as a form of agency on the other hand. And we think that these two sides cannot be teared apart. So with this framework in mind, we organize usually lecture series every year. In particular, this year we organized a lecture series titled Constitutio Libertatis, so taken an Arendt expression. This lecture series will end in June, next June, with an international conference that Giacomo mentioned already. This is going to be taking place in Verona from the 25th to the 27th of June, and is titled Arendtian Conciliarism, Visions and Care for Democracy. So the main topic we will try to discuss with international scholars, also Roger Berkowitz will be with us, is this Arendtian idea of council system, and also council system as a kind of an alternative experience of politics and democracy that usually is related and can emerge in revolutionary times. And so this is going to be our entrance point to rethink together in this conference alternative forms of experience of democracy. Of course, everybody is more welcome to attend the conference and check the program in our website. I want just to add that our research agenda of the center is greatly enriched by the presence of visiting scholars from around the world that we welcome mostly every year at the center. And so together we'll try to construct an interdisciplinary and diverse community of researchers. Usually people come from all over the world, also with different backgrounds and from different fields, but we share somehow this common thread that is a commitment to use Arendt's thoughts to better understand political life today. So just let me close by saying that how much I valued the conversation we are having here today, and also the opportunity that I'm sure this network of Arendt Center will give you to all of us. And so we really hope that we can continue this exchange in the future, perhaps even in Verona. We would be very happy to host another meeting or a future event of this network. So thank you.